All right. Just like every day teaches us something, so does every week, every month, and every year. Like with the day, we can see that it starts the sun coming up and it gets brighter, and eventually it starts to go down and it gets darker and the night comes. But then it comes back the next day, right? So we see that we wake up, as the Bible refers to sleep as death, or death as sleep. You wake up, you come to life, but eventually you die. You go to sleep at night, but you're going to be resurrected the next day. So you get this constant message of, yeah, you're alive, and enjoy the day while you can. Enjoy your life while you can, because you're going to die, and every day reminds you of that. But you can have hope when you die, if you actually have accepted the God who created the day and his sacrifice for you. Then he'll resurrect you, right? We also see that in the seasons throughout the year. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because a fella took what I said in passing about Christmas and Easter being pagan. And they're like, why would you say such a thing? Right? And I was saying, well, for starters, Jesus was born in the fall at the Feast of Tabernacles, right? Not in the winter, right? So they celebrating his birth at the completely wrong time, right? And over here in the spring, Jesus rose from the dead on first fruits, right? Easter doesn't line up with that. Not to mention that not only do these dates don't line up with when Jesus was actually born and when he was actually resurrected, they've completely replaced Jesus with something else to really get to the children with toys and candy, where now your childhood memories about Christmas is not about how God sent his son into the world as his gift to us to save us, but about Santa Claus and how if you write him a letter about what you want, he might get you those toys and put them under the tree. And your memories of waking up on Christmas morning and going to get that toy you wanted and just how happy you were about it. Right? So it has nothing to do with Jesus, but some toy that a week or a month later you actually got bored of and forgot about. Right? And then spring, come Easter, which is usually celebrated before first fruits when Jesus was actually resurrected. Sometimes it's closer to around the time, but most of the time it's off by at least a week or two. And you have an Easter bunny that gives you all the candy. So a lot of the children, they remember, oh yeah, on the resurrection I got chocolate eggs and all this candy. It was all great in the Easter bunny, right? It has nothing to do with Jesus. And the children, what do they remember about those times? The toys and the candy. They're not focused on Jesus. The focus has gotten away from Jesus because they brought in pagan elements, heathen elements, worldly elements, to completely not only change the dates, but to corrupt the whole thing. Because with Christmas, it happens at the winter solstice, which has to do with Mithra, the sun god, that Rome worshipped. Where at the winter solstice, it's as the sun dies, right? Because it's the shortest day of the year for about 3 days. It's really short. And then it starts to rise back up, and then the days start to get longer, right? So right there is like the death and resurrection of their God, right? But not the death and resurrection of Jesus, which happens in the spring, right? And it's a total pagan holiday, that they celebrate. And Easter, they make it on Sunday. It always has to be on a Sunday because, again, it has to do with the sun, right? And it's more about the birth of their sun god, as it has to do with pagan fertility rites, where you have bunnies and eggs because bunnies reproduce very fast. And eggs represent, having the children, right? You see that there? So, what I want to show you here is how God tells us a story through the seasons. You see, we start off in life in summer. You can say in the Garden of Eden, everything is just plentiful, right? You got the summer fruits. But then there's a fall, right? Everything starts to decay here. But that's as soon as God comes into the world at the fall, right? The fall feast, the Feast of Tabernacles, is most likely the time when Jesus was born. It could have been at trumpets or atonement, but it was right in around that time there where Jesus was born. And it's right at the fall that God joins us. And he goes with us through the winter, right? Through the tough times. And then in the spring, he actually is the one that brings forth life. When life comes back, he offers his life to us so that he can bring summer back. Right? To bring us back to the Garden of Eden. So every day we get the same message about life and death, but a promise of resurrection. We see the same thing through the year, through the seasons. Now, the closer you are to the equator, the less you really see this, but you get the general idea. Because even people at the equator, they understand that in other parts of the world, they have the fall and the winter, where the plants start to die and it snows and all that. For the most part, they understand that. And they have the information to see that. But we see how this message is played out. And we see creation telling us that same story over and over. That there was a fall from the summertime. But God comes with us. And he offers himself to bring it back. All right? To bring us out of the death of winter. Because ultimately, what we see here in winter is death. We see the night. Right? And in the summer, we see life, the day. Right? And eventually, Jesus is going to bring forth the day that doesn't end. Well, there is no more night. Right? There is no more death. It's done. Right? But we get that message throughout the year. And you kind of lose track of that message when you celebrate the worldly holidays of Christmas and Easter, where they'll try to say things like, oh, put Jesus back in Christmas, when originally he wasn't really even part of it. Basically what you're saying is, put Jesus in this pagan holiday. Right? And this is one of the things that actually kept me from Christianity for a while. Because when I was even like 5, 6 years old, I had these questions. Because I was raised basically in confusion. Because my dad, a Catholic man, he didn't bother celebrating Christmas or Easter. He thought it was a stupid waste of time and money. Right? He's a very strict guy. But my mother, who was a Jehovah's Witness at the time, wasn't supposed to celebrate Christmas and Easter, but she did, right? So I didn't understand. So I would ask my dad, what does Santa Claus have to do with this Jesus fella? And he would just say something like, ask your mother. Because he didn't care to get into that stuff. Same thing when I asked about, what does the Easter Bunny have to do with this Jesus fella? Go ask your mother. So I would ask my mom, And then I ended up asking, some other Christian folk, what does Santa Claus have to do with Jesus? Or what does the Easter Bunny have to do with Jesus? And I noticed they just looked at me like a child shouldn't be asking that question, and they didn't have an answer. They would just kind of be like, and, change the subject and divert, like, people don't respect children. But I remembered that, and I was like, okay, so Christians are retarded. And I had no respect for them, because they just did things for no reason. Yeah, we're worshiping Jesus, but here's Santa Claus giving you the toy. So it's like, what does it have to do with Jesus? I don't know. Apparently nothing. Okay, so you're retarded. I'm going to stay away from that. And the Easter Bunny, what does he have to do with that? Nothing. Okay. So why are you doing it? Now, I didn't understand that it was pagan and heathen. I didn't understand that at the time. I just understand that obviously this has nothing to do with Jesus, because they couldn't explain to me what it had to do with him. Because I remember people talking about, oh, this is when Jesus was born. All right, this Jesus fella's born. So what's up with this fat red guy jumping down chimneys to give toys? What's this about? This Easter Bunny, what's that about? And that was one of the things that actually kept me away from actually wanting to go to church, want to talk to Christians, or even read the Bible. Because I thought Christians were just batshit crazy. That they just were weirdos that just did whatever they were going to do for no reason. Right? And that kind of foundation, even though at the time I believed in God and I would pray, it kept me away from Christianity, because I thought, again, they were just a bunch of weirdos. And they still basically are, for the most part. And as I grew up, that made it where I drifted away, even from the idea of God. Because I thought, all the people who actually believed in God, I didn't want to be associated with that kind of thing, because of the nonsensory, weird stuff like this, right? So to other people, they don't think it's a big deal. It's not a matter of salvation, right? I hear that a lot. Why do you talk about these things? It's not a matter of salvation, so just forget about it. Let people do what they want to do. Be like, well, you see, it is a matter of salvation. It kept me away from Jesus, right? And it does for others as well. I'm not the only one, right? So it is a matter of salvation, just probably not your salvation. Yeah, you believe, so you don't think it's a big deal to celebrate these things. But isn't the whole point of being a Christian is to not just be comfortable in this world, but actually to be here to reach others, even if you have to suffer and die to do so? But yeah, you all do the exact opposite. Rather have a comfortable, easy life and not have to do that. Again, showing, you talk about this Jesus guy and how loving and sacrificing he was, but you're not anywhere close to being like that, right? So you're giving off this bad example of basically hypocrisy, right? Not saying that everybody has to suffer and die every day to reach others, but you think if you believed in this Jesus who did this, you would see something a little closer to that, instead of trying to always constantly go for having a comfortable, easy life. And this is actually going to tie into another video I want to do after this about relationships. So I'm going to talk about that. But anyway, with all that being said, you can study this out for yourself, especially about the fall, where you can see when John the Baptist was born, and see that 6 months later, Jesus was born, right? It's just simple things like that. And you can put all the pieces together and see when Jesus was born, but you also can see that it doesn't tell you exactly when Jesus was born, letting you know that it's not important, right? So it's not a big deal celebrating Jesus' birth into this world and when it was, right? Just believe that he did. He came into this world. It doesn't matter exactly when, but he did, and he came into this world and bore the sins of the world and redeemed us from death and hell, to save us not only from our sins, but from ourselves and who and what we are, to make us children of Satan to children of his own, to adopt us into his family, that we may die and bring justice to our lives and be born again into his life. And that's what ultimately matters. And yeah, even this depiction of a cross, for example, it's actually a pagan sun god. I forgot the name of it. That's what they use in the middle of the constellation, a little sundial-like thing. Not so much a sundial, but to go through the constellations and the motions of the sun. I forgot the actual name of it, so yeah. That's why I generally don't use one, for the most part. But anyway, with all that being said, don't forget to do what Isaiah said and seek out the book of the Lord and read it. If you speak English, that would be the KJV. And also do what he said and put line upon line, here a little, there a little, doing what Paul said, studying that word, showing yourself approved unto God, not man, rightly dividing the word of truth. And do what John has Jesus recorded telling the church of Philadelphia, and keep his word. Don't deny his name. Hide it in your heart. Preserve it and protect it, so that God will keep you from the hour of temptation which will come upon all those that dwell on the earth. And then Jesus will never be able to tell you, you do err not knowing the scriptures. And with all that being said, if you would like to support this channel, you watching all the way through helps out a lot. But if you would just like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, share the video, share the channel, interact in the comment section. These things help out so much and are greatly appreciated. If you want to help out more because you're able to, there's 4 ways you can donate to the ministry in the info description box. But what would really help is if you took a moment to pray to our Heavenly Father that this ministry would keep on keeping on as long as he wants it to, as long as we're here, and that he would watch over all of us as born-again believers and protect us and provide for us until he comes and gets us, which looks like it's very soon. Not tomorrow or today when this video is coming out, but it would be nice if I was wrong. I wouldn't complain. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you in the next one. May God bless you and yours.